Hey everyone, and welcome to my new series Chronological Clarification, where I'll be going over game franchises with long and often confusing histories while trying to give a brief overview of the series to clear up any misinformation. For my first episode, I want to talk a little bit about PunchOut, one of Nintendo's oldest game franchises that has gone through quite a few iterations over the years. So with Little Mac being a playable character in the new Smash Bros., I thought it'd be a perfect time to go over the game's 30-year history. In 1983, Nintendo created an arcade game based around the sport of boxing entitled PunchOut, in which you play as a green-haired boxer as you fight your way through a variety of opponents from across the world. One of the main things that made this game unique was the use of dual displays, which gave the player all the information about the fight on the top screen and the actual gameplay on the bottom. It's also worth mentioning that PunchOut was the first game ever composed by Koji Kondo, who went on to create the music for Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Star Fox. Another thing that made the game unique was that it wasn't going for realism, but rather had the player trying to understand the opponent's varied movesets, so that with enough practice and patience, anyone could learn how each boxer thinks and attacks. This gave the game quite a bit of strategy, which played a big role in it being a success. The game was such a hit that Nintendo created a Game & Watch version soon after. Following the success of the original, Nintendo created Super PunchOut the following year, which shared the same arcade cabinet design as the original, along with much of the same gameplay, which had been tweaked a bit along with the new cast of characters to fight. Nintendo also allowed for their new boxing game to be ported over to several home PCs with the name changed to Frank Bruno's Boxing. In this version, the nameless protagonist is now changed to the famous boxer Frank Bruno, but most agree that this version is an extremely inferior port. The same year Super PunchOut was released, Nintendo also created the spin-off game Arm Wrestling, which plays much like PunchOut, but with the sport being switched. While there's not much more to be said about Arm Wrestling, it is worth mentioning that it was the last arcade game independently released by Nintendo, before they moved their efforts over to the NES. With Nintendo's newly released home console, they decided that the PunchOut series needed representation on the system. So in 1987 they released their new version of PunchOut in a gold cartridge that was given as a prize to the winners of a golf tournament. Soon after, the president of Nintendo of America decided they should license the name of the boxer Mike Tyson for the US release. While most sports games that license the name of an athlete usually make them playable, that wasn't the case for PunchOut. Instead, you were playing as the black-haired New Yorker Little Mac. From all reports, it seems that Mike Tyson didn't have any influence in making the game, with him even stating that he couldn't beat the easiest character, Glass Joe. While PunchOut featuring Mike Tyson created some new fighters, they also brought back others. But the Russian rival Vodka Drunkinsky from Super PunchOut had his name changed to Soda Popinski to make it past American censors. Because apparently it's inappropriate to stereotype the Russian character as a vodka-drinking alcoholic, yet having the Frenchman be a wimpy pushover and the Indian guy fly around on a magic carpet while taming tigers is perfectly acceptable. Now, some people may become confused at the fact that there are two versions of PunchOut on the NES, one featuring Mike Tyson and the other having the fictional character Mr. Dream. But these are both the same game, with Mike's character sprite being swapped out in the latter. Many believe that they changed the game in response to Tyson's rape conviction, but this is actually not true since the new version was released prior to the incident. The real reason for the change was that Nintendo's license for his name was up. A few years passed when a new iteration of the series was released for the Super Nintendo, and the game follows the series' signature gameplay of fighting through unique characters. But the real kicker is that Nintendo decided to name the game Super PunchOut. So let's get this straight. The series goes from PunchOut to Super PunchOut, then back to PunchOut, then to Super PunchOut again. The only way Nintendo could make this more confusing is if they went back to PunchOut for the next... Ignoring the naming, the other thing that's really confusing about Super PunchOut is the character you play as. You would think he would be Little Mac, but upon starting the game you realize he looks nothing like the NES or arcade version. Add that to the fact that you could choose his name leads many gamers to believe that this is a completely new character. On the other hand, some point out that the Virtual Console release of Super Punch-Out specifically refers to him as Little Mac, and in the GameCube version of Fight Night Round 2, the Super Punch-Out protagonist is a fightable character, with the announcer referring to him as Little Mac from Tokyo, Japan, even though he was from New York in the NES version. So you may be asking yourself, is he or is he not Little Mac? And the answer to your question is no one really knows, because Nintendo's never bothered to give us a straight answer. The next time we hear about Punch-Out would be in 2008, when the Little Mac from the NES version appeared in both Super Smash Bros. As an assist trophy, and in Captain Rainbow, where you find a morbidly obese version of his character. Man, I so wish that game came to the US. In 2009, Nintendo finally released a new game in the series after a decade of waiting, known simply as Punch-Out. With this, the series now had 5 games, 3 called Punch-Out and the other 2 called Super Punch-Out. I'm pretty sure they're just messing with us at this point. The Wii version follows along in the footsteps of its predecessors, with them bringing back some of the series' best-known rivals. But the character Piston Hondo was changed to Piston Hondo, which was most likely done to prevent any legal issues from the car company Honda. Next, Nintendo released a downloadable game that consisted of an extra fighter for Little Mac to box in the Wii version, and then finally he was included as a playable character in Smash Bros. 4. So I hope that cleared up any misinformation you may have had about the Punch-Out series, and if you have any other ideas for future episodes, please feel free to leave a comment below. So until next time, thanks for watching.